Um, there, there's a lot of them. Their marketability, or the fact that they might have to, if they manage to take less of your property than was originally promised, they'll deduct that. They might set it up by per foot. They might charge you, because it is your land, the cost of their insurance.
So you can negotiate all those deductions as well then?
Yeah, you want to make sure they're not deducting. If they promise to pay you $10,000, you want to check for $10,000. And also, as far as the restoration goes, that you want to start and end date. You want a start date for the construction, and you want to give them X amount of dates after they finish the construction to restore it, okay? Because we realize that, you know, construction, you can't say, okay, it's going to just take you 30 days. It might take them 60 days because of bad weather or other unforeseen conditions. But you want a definite thing saying that once they complete the pipeline, that 3 months or 6 months or whatever you feel is reasonable, after they've completed the construction, you want your property totally restored and you want your check in hand. If not, put in a clause that you're going to start charging them interest, X amount per day, that it's delayed, that your property is not restored. Okay, so you want to read and understand the easement agreement, and like I mentioned, the front page amount may be different from what you actually get, so you want to read the fine print. Again, this is why you want to go to a lawyer. Okay, and I already spoke about the restoration, and then the separate checks between the payments for the easement and any compensation for damages. All right, makes it easier for the tax. All right, community benefits on pipelines. There are none. The pipelines aren't going to service local residents. These are transmission lines, not local service lines, so no one's going to be able to light their stove or heat their house with these lines. Construction is short-term, so there are no long-term job benefits. In fact, the Penn East, which is a 108-mile pipeline, they're boasting 2,500 jobs. In actuality, there's less than 90 that once it's completed that are actually going to be created, and that figure's a little dubious too. There's a lot of questions on where and how they get their numbers. My favorite thing is when they say 2,500 jobs or 5,000 jobs or this job, they are including things. The way they get that number is they go into a town and they say, okay, there are 5 trucking companies, and we need trucks to transport our pipes, or we need trucks to transport our equipment. And each of these trucking companies has 50 employees. So that's what? Let's say that's 500 employees. That's 500 jobs. It doesn't matter if the ABC Trucking Company does not have a contract to transport pipes for the pipeline company. Service jobs, ancillary jobs, oh, they're spin-off jobs. Penn East actually counts a food truck service worker that drives to a construction site and delivers a taco to a worker as a job created. McDonald's, you got a restaurant in town, the pipeline's coming through. Every McDonald's worker is counted as a job created, whether or not they serve a burger to a pipeline worker or not. These are not jobs created, these are existing jobs that may or may not provide some sort of service to the pipeline company while they're doing construction. And again, these are temporary jobs, these are construction jobs. They come, they go. So there's really no job benefit. These guys are also often out of state, so they're not even in the state. Any money they're making, they're sending home. Pipelines are considered equipment, so in Pennsylvania, they're not taxable. That goes for compressor station, valve stations, metering stations, and anything else connected to the pipeline. They're equipment, they're not taxable. so your town is not gonna get any income from it, the state is not gonna get any income from it. Now, there is a bill before the Pennsylvania legislature that's been resubmitted a couple of times where they are trying to tax the pipelines, so the communities will get some sort of benefit from them. However, pipeline companies are going, oh, it kills jobs.
How'd that go again? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it kills jobs. It's a job killer. And they're not gonna, and if you tax the pipelines, they're not gonna build them.
Tax
Yeah.
them then.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All right, property values will go down, which reduces the revenue to the county. And so that means that with the county having less tax revenues and your town having less revenues and less income coming in, either one or two things happen. They reduce services or they raise taxes on everybody else. It's an industrialization of your community, and this will depress the real estate market, and it has in some areas where realtors are now reporting that people don't even want to look at properties that are just in the path of a proposed pipeline that is not even constructed yet. They don't even want to live there near it. So it's making it difficult to sell property. And one pipeline will bring more pipelines. It's like a cat in heat. You got one pipeline, all the other pipelines have got to come. Okay, so again, I'm going to repeat this. Your attorney who knows about pipelines and easement agreements and eminent domain, your banker and mortgage lender, property insurance, tax professional, property assessor. Those are the people you need to talk to if you're approached to sign an easement. Okay, that was a mistake, that was a duplicate. All right, so what you can do. Register, file with FERC. Get your comments in, make the noise. On the Atlantic Sunrise, on the Penn East, you don't have to be directly affected by any of these pipelines. At any point, anyone can comment from anywhere. Your Aunt Fanny from Hawaii can comment on the Atlantic Sunrise going through Pennsylvania if they want. You need to make the noise. You need to make the noise. And FERC is hearing it because they are saying opposition is unprecedented. Cheryl LaFleur would not make that comment unless she was worried about it. Your federal, state, county, local officials and regulatory agencies. This could be the DEP, the Fish and Game Commission, anyone, the Army Corps of Engineers, which we're trying to contact right now in relation to the Penn East because of where they want to cross the Susquehanna River, which is not too far from the Knox mine disaster and other coal mines in Pennsylvania. Not a great place to put a pipeline, but that's where Penn East wants to put it. So we're in contact with them. We're in contact with local conservatory organizations, land trusts, anyone that has to chime in. There's a whole list on these pipelines contacts. Once you sign up and you're getting regular updates from FERC via email of who to talk to. Letters to the editor, you call your talk shows, you comment on our articles. Another way to make noise, communicate, talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to your Aunt Fanny in Hawaii. Get her to write to FERC, get her to write a letter to the editor. Hey, I'm concerned about my niece. She's got a pipeline going through her backyard. I'm 84 years old. What happens if she gets blown up? Join and form a group. You got to stay involved. It's just not a one-issue thing. When I got involved, it was about fracking. Well, in Luzerne County, they drilled 3 test wells. They came up dry, and Candace said bye-bye and left. And with it, most of our membership. There's maybe about 20 of us left that are very active and very involved and have stayed involved because we know this is not the end of it. It's going to be a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. You can't have your cookies right now. You got to fight for them. So again, educate yourself, your neighbors, your family, do your research, get your information, You don't have to sit there and study these reports for a PhD. A lot of good newspaper articles, a lot of good websites have good synopsis where you can at least get a flavor of what's going on, and if you're interested, you can dig into it deeper, but you need to know really what's going on, and you need to pay attention to it. Okay, so there's no good reason to grant a pipeline or utility easement. Landman says he's going to take your property. You posted your property for no surveying, and the surveyors have showed up. What do? FERC has a hotline. You can call them. They're not going to do much, but you're going to make noise. It's going to get registered. It's going to keep somebody's busy. It's going to cost them some money. So call them and report it, and also put it into the comments for FERC under the project docket. The Penn East docket is PF 15-1. Atlantic Sunrise is CP 15-138. Now, once Penn East files their official thing, they'll get the CP prefix to their docket number. You can go to the FERC.gov/filing e-comment ASP. If you're not computer literate, snail mail, stamp. Put a stamp on it, handwrite it, whatever. In fact, I encourage people to do that in addition to e-filing for 2 reasons. Once FERC gets it, someone has to open the envelope. Someone has to read the letter. Someone has to decide which pile that letter goes into. Then it has to be scanned in and loaded into the computer system. It takes time, it takes money, it keeps, hey, job creation, right? You're keeping somebody busy. So, that's all I've got really to say. If you got any questions, I'd be happy to take them, and I'll answer them the best I can.
First, I'd like to thank you for coming and sharing your experiences and your knowledge. I'm a resident of Palm Beach County. My name is Jennifer Haney. I know some of you guys from the university. And my second question is actually for the audience. I'm curious if there's any local officials here, elected representatives, county commissioners, anyone in official government capacity. Township supervisors, perhaps? Someone township? Is that the only person? Thank you.
My question was exactly the same.
Okay.
How many supervisors, commissioners, representatives, state senators, federal representatives are here or have done anything?
One is here, one just raised.
I know, that's one person. What has gone on here tonight is the most important thing that has gone on in this whole damn project. It is, what she has said to us is critical, and they haven't heard it. But Dean has been good enough to film it, and we'll have some options.
The map that you showed where they altered the pipeline route from the corner of the property through the middle of the property?
Yeah.
That looks like the Bartholomew property?
Yeah, it is.
It is.
That-
Yes.
Is there a final resolution on that, or is that
I haven't
still
seen
pending?
anything come through on it. He filed it through FERC, so it's a public document, so I was able to access it. I don't know. I haven't seen anything come through specifically to address that. He filed his objections with FERC, and now it's between him and Williams to work it out. And frankly, he shouldn't sign an easement agreement unless he gets the pipeline where he wants. It's his property. He's granting that land.
So then if they alter their route, they can't build until that's settled?
Yeah. Yeah, they have to get the foot by foot where it's going settled. They'll probably still get the FERC rubber stamp on it, but as far as the construction on their property, they'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis. FERC doesn't care if they run it through the middle of your house. With the Penn East pipeline, when they recently redid the route, I met with a group of people there a couple of weeks ago, and they've got a decent sized lot, but it's long and narrow. They have a permanent above ground pool, they've got a shed with a foundation on it, a propane tank, and a septic system in their backyard. And where they want to run the pipeline goes right through all of that. And she's like, well, no, just go and, no, we'll move it for you, ma'am, we'll move the pool. Well, there's no place to put the pool, there's no, where the septic and the underground propane tank and everything else, there is no other place to put it. Yes?
I'm just gonna introduce myself. I'm from Catawissa, and I don't know if anybody here is familiar with that. There is a campground down there. It's the Catawissa Boat Club, and actually, the Catawissa Boat Club is actually on Indian burial grounds. Well, there's a ramp down there, and they really want to use that ramp to get into the river and drill, and we have told them no. Well, last night, we got from eminent domain. So I'm glad I came tonight. I found out a lot of stuff, but now they're not gonna play nice.
Who's the company?
Williams?
And is this for the pipeline?
Yes.
For the,
They're going to use, there's a, what we've been told is they're going to use the same, route that the electrical comes down over the mountain. And it's gonna actually go right under they want to put it right under the Susquehanna.
yeah, well, that's what they want to do in Luzerne County under the Susquehanna. Now, they can't co-locate the pipeline next to the power lines.
No, well, that's what they've been telling us.
Well, they can't. They
Well,
can't. It's not allowed.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, this is what I've been getting bits and pieces of this.
Yeah, well, that's
And like you
not
said, you
allowed by
don't,
regular.
I never believe what they tell you anyway.
Yeah,
They have offered, it's the Catawissa Boat Club, and I don't know if I'll get in trouble for this, they have offered them money, and I told them, I said, as soon as you take that money, you're done.
yeah,
I said, you cannot take the money. You
Yeah.
have to, like you said, you have to negotiate.
you have to negotiate, exactly.
Yeah, but that's why I'm here tonight, because,
And,
something,
and this is for the Atlantic Sunrise or a different pipeline?
I don't know exactly which one,
It's a sunrise.
it's a Sunrise?
It is a
Okay.
Sunrise.
Yeah. And I actually.
Yeah, well, they haven't been issued their certificate of public need and.
Right, but they're
so
really pushing the issue, and it's starting to push the issue.
Yeah, well, the people that run the outfit should be, the boat ramp, people should be filing these complaints with FERC.
Okay, well, I'll let them do
And,
that.
and they should be, they should be filing them, and sending in those comments.
I, actually wrote a letter, and it's a little sentimental, but I sent it to the press, and, give you a little history. I moved here 11 years ago. I have found out I have Native American heritage, and I do not want that land ruined.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Thank you.
Yes,
I think I can maybe add a little bit more information there, and you can help us better understand. The concept of that Atlantic Sunrise pipeline paralleling the BPL transmission line.
yeah,
It goes from Washingtonville and then over to Catawissa.
uh-huh,
And BPL lost the right of way for that power line in the late 60s or early 70s while the Washingtonville power plant was under construction. They bought wide enough right of way to run 2 transmission lines on. And it's our understanding in Hemlock Township that once they got halfway or a little more across our township, they would meet up with the CPL right of way and use the extra width of the right of way to run the pipeline.
so this,
From
the
Hemlock Township.
the PP&L, these aren't electrical lines, right?
Main line. I live there. Overhead electric line.
Yeah,
All right, well,
Transmission line.
you need to check out the regulations, because it's my understanding you can't run a natural gas pipeline next to electrical power lines.
They were gonna run that, and I've seen them, I live not too far from them, maybe 1,000 yards. They've been down there drilling,
Yeah,
and they're not that far from the power lines. And my question is this, the one that blew up in Unityville,
Yeah,
is what, a 24-incher?
yeah,
This thing blows up down there, it's gonna take out a major grid.
yeah.
I don't know where they're heading.
Well, that's why they, it's not allowed.
They can't run together. Do you know of any regulations that say specifics?
I don't know the specific regulations. I've been told by experts that you cannot run a natural gas pipeline next to electrical power lines. For the very reason this other gentleman said, is that if you got an explosion, you're taking out a power grid. I'll have to look it up, but I can't cite the regulation. The people that are more knowledgeable about this that I've spoken to have told me you cannot, because that was one of my concerns. You know, what if, you know, what happens if they run, co-locate a pipeline next to you know, electrical power lines? And they say, oh, they can't do that. You're not allowed.
I'm not positive.
Check with, if you got, I'll do it too, but you can check with the pipeline, PIMSA, Pipeline Hazard Material Safety, federal.
I'm not positive of the figures, but if remember everything correctly, when that power line went through in the early 1970s, they bought 300 feet wide of right of way. They used 150 feet of it to put one transmission line on, with the other 150 feet reserved for future whatever.
Yeah, usually for future power lines, but not for co-locating something like a natural gas.
I have no idea what the easement agreements are, but if they did the landowners back in the 70s, they could be rather wide open.
Yeah, well, most likely, this is what's happening with a lot of people in our area with Atlantic Sunrise and the Transco. They've got the Transco agreement, and now they got the Atlantic Sunrise coming through, which they're not getting additional compensation for, because it's going on the same original easement.
So, folks who are interested in this power line question, if you want to leave your contact info, and you know, we can, you know, if you want to do some additional research.
Yeah, I'll check it out, yeah.
Because that's what
Follow up
that's
on
what we were told. We were told that it was gonna use the same path
Yeah,
and to go over, actually, they wanna go under the river, which, I don't know if you've ever seen the Susquehanna River in February. It's like, I don't know how that's gonna be possible, because everything moves.
yeah.
You know, I don't care if you dig it down 12 feet, that river moves. That's my concern.
Yeah.
After the pipeline easement, at least the proposed route goes through the veterinarian's property there in Buckhorn and heads towards Frosty Valley Road at the intersection with Schoolhouse. They've been out there surveying, and that's where the power line goes across and up over the mountain there too.
Yep.
The same line. And if there is enough width there in easement for them to somehow get away with it, they'll probably try to do it.
Well, I'm sure they're gonna try to do it, but I'll have to check it out. The Linda Farrell Pipeline Safety Coalition would probably be a good place for me to check. Instead of trying to go through the government regs. I'll check with her first. Because she's the one that told me you couldn't have the two co-located in the same area.
Well, that would sort of make sense. though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like the natural gas pipeline they want to run in Indian Point, next to the nuke in New York. Yeah. That's smart, huh? Run a pipeline right next to a nuclear power plant, yes.
So, there's been talk that that the Atlantic Sunrise will be used to fuel a natural gas power plant in the region, and this came from a Williams representative, so I don't believe it.
Right.
But I've also heard from somebody that I do trust that this gas may not necessarily be going to export, but it may be used for natural gas power plants in the southeast United States. And,
Well, that's where they're headed. They're headed down towards the Gulf as well as to Cove Point. Now, the Sabine Pass in the Gulf is just about online for export. Cove Point won't be online for another couple of years. And Atlantic Sunrise, if they're on schedule, they're gonna be operational at the end of 2017. So for a couple of months, they may go to a power plant. And then once Cove Point is finished construction and the Sabine Pass and the other export facilities they're building are up and running, that's where it'll go. They're getting 15 to 20 per million BTUs for natural gas overseas. Market here is only $2. So, I mean, look at it from your perspective. You got a car. Somebody offers you $200, somebody offers you $2,000. Which one are you gonna take? You're gonna take the $2,000.
But I guess the question then is, even if for a limited amount of time, if they are using a portion of it domestically, then does that entitle them to eminent domain?
Probably, because when the gas goes, like with the PennEast where it goes into the hub, it ends up in a hub in New Jersey. Where it goes from there, they don't know.
Right.
One of the hub connectors is Spectra Energy. Spectra Energy is building the Algonquin expansion or extension, which goes up to New England, into Maine to Searsport, where they are building an export facility. It connects to another one of their pipelines that goes into Canada. It's export. So PennEast technically isn't exporting, but PennEast will be selling gas to other people who will be exporting. Whether or not a short period of time with the Atlantic Sunrise selling to Joe Schmo Power Company in Maryland for a couple of months before exporting it is enough to claim that it's serving the public, that it's being used for domestic use. You know, it's part of the game.
Yes, it is.
You know, this is a very long process. It's a very discouraging process, and it's one that we've got to learn and learn how to manipulate it to our best advantage to make the most noise. And we've got to use all the tools. We can't just say, oh, well, I'm not going to write the FERC because it doesn't do any good. Well, it does do good. But just writing to FERC doesn't do any good. Just protesting doesn't do any good. Just writing letters to the editor doesn't do any good. Just educating yourself but not sharing it doesn't do any good. All of these come together. You don't like the eminent domain laws in the state and how it pertains with the pipelines and such? Do some research. Can we change it? Of course we can change it. But we got to vote. We got to get the people in there who are willing to work with us to change these laws, to make them fair. Because this is, I mean, these pipelines, this is a private corporation taking your land for their profit. That is not in the public interest. Yes?
Oh, I just wanted to ask if you have any information or advice. Grant Township in Indiana County, I think, passed a zoning law saying no waste wells.
Uh-huh.
And apparently they were sued by the oil or gas company.
Yeah, of course.
And the judge upheld the zoning law.
Yeah,
So that's just happened in the last week, apparently.
yeah.
So what does that say to the rest of us who are thinking about some zoning?
It depends on what you want to zone and how you want to write it. With pipelines, I don't know. I'm not up on the zoning aspect of it and how much you can get away with. You were certainly, as far as something like compressor stations, the industrial, you know, the above ground industrial stuff, you can specify certain areas of your town is zoned for industry, and that's where the only place they can go.
Oh.
That will force them to move the pipeline, you know, to go to that area if they don't fight you on it. But, you know, it's something you can look into. Stopping a pipeline going through the town through the use of zoning, I don't think that's going to fly. You're going to have a hard time with that. It's like, you know, power lines and stuff, you know. They're going to claim a public utility or something like that and go where they want.
Maybe that's why
Yeah, well, it shuts down one of the arguments.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just got this morning from a stock analyst, like a newsletter that comes out, Rusty Brazil. It says the 12 liquefaction trains now under construction at 5 sites in the lower 48 states, Sabine Pass, Cameron, Freeport, Cove Point, and Corpus Christi together will have the capacity to export up to 54 metric tons per annum, which would require up to 7 billion cubic feet a day of U.S. gas, about 10% of current production levels. This pipeline is not going to necessarily sell all of its gas overseas. If it's going to average out to 10%, that's going to cover a lot of their expenses because they can get 10 times as much money overseas, even after shipping. But what it will do is create a constant demand for the gas. It's going to raise all of our prices domestically, and it's going to mean, you were talking about Cabot sunk a couple wells in Luzerne County. Williams sunk a failed well across from my house up in Benton, but they'll be back.
Yeah.
Once all the easy fruit has been picked, they'll be back to all the other places where they didn't get good returns, and they'll drill 10 times as many wells as we have in Pennsylvania now.
Pipelines create fracking.
Yeah.
I think the thing we have to keep in mind is that federal law supersedes all the state and
Right.
local laws we make, and we're dealing with her.
Yeah.
I had a question though. I mean, I would like to have heard more about the pollution that this will cause. I'm not, a line is not running through my property, but I'm in a lovely place called the hazard zone, and all my property is in the hazard zone. Someone came to survey my land, and I said no. They don't really need my land to put the pipeline through. But the pipeline will go above, is on my water supply. I live in a hollow. The water comes down from the mountain, the pipeline goes to the top of my hill. So I'm thinking about pollution mainly, and I gather that Williams does not have a very good track record with regard to infractions and accidents.
Okay, all pipelines leak. Whether they're new, whether they're old, whether they're middle age. They leak at the wells, they leak at all the connections.
What was her question?
She wanted to know about pollution from the pipelines.
Oh.
Okay. More often than not, the main problem that people experience with the pipelines is storm runoff, because it changes the topography.
Could you use the
land.
mic,
please?
Oh. The main problem is it changes the, hello?
Is the mic working?
Hello? Is this working now?
Yep. It died. Here comes Zach. He'll fix it.
Yeah, it's got a red light. Okay, mostly what happens with these pipelines is you have storm runoff because the pipeline itself changes the topography of the land. You're cutting down trees, which absorbs a lot of the storm water. We're seeing this in Luzerne County with one family who are very concerned about where they've already got a storm runoff problem. They already get flooded, from a fairly decent sized rainstorm. And where they want to run the pipeline is going to increase that. All pipelines leak. They leak at the wells, they leak at the joints, they leak at the, all the attachments, they all leak. As far as natural gas leaking from the pipeline and contaminating your water, that doesn't happen, okay? The gas that's leaking from the pipeline, it's 3 to 4 feet underground. It's going to go up to the surface right away. It's not going to follow and go sideways. Gas rises, it goes there. where you're seeing people with methane in their water wells is because of the way fracking is done, where it's drilled down and it goes out laterally, the rock is shattered, and then the gas, as it's trying to find its way to the surface, follows natural fissures and fractures in the rock. It enters an aquifer or wherever the water source is above it, and that's where you get the methane in the water, where there's fracking going on. But with pipelines, you're not gonna get it. Where you might see changes in your water is if they're drilling as opposed to trenching for the pipe. They're drilling down, slant drilling under, and then they snake the pipe under, then you're gonna see the drilling mud get into your water. It will eventually settle. It is unnerving to see it in your water. It will eventually settle. But you want to hold them accountable. So if they're drilling, if they're not just digging a trench and your water is changing color and stuff, you want to call the DEP first and let them know, and then let the company know. And the reason you want to let DEP know is because the company will run over and say, here, sign this, you can't sue us, and we'll give you water. And that's what happened to a lot of people in these areas where the drilling is going on. Instead of calling DEP and reporting it first, they called the driller. They called Cabot, they called Chesapeake, they called Range Resources, they called Chief, or they called, the Frack It All American fracking company, and they said, my water's contaminated. And that company ran over with a piece of paper that said, sign this, we'll give you water. And what it says is they can't talk about the fact they have bad water, they can't sue the company for bad water, they get a big water buffalo, they get some fresh water for about a year or so, and the company says, your water's fine, we're not going to give you any more. And because you signed that agreement, you have no recourse. You can't go back now and even talk about it. So you get any of these problems, you call DEP. You got to report it there first. Yeah, I know DEP's not going to do anything, but you got to report it there first. You got to get it on the record. You have to get it on the record. All right? I realize that we all think that DEP stands for don't expect protection. But you have to report it. This is the system we got. Like it or not, until we can change the system, this is what we got. This is how we got to work within it. This is how you have to protect yourself. You call DEP. You report it. You get your water, you demand a water test. You call a lawyer. Yeah, these are the only people that are really gonna get jobs out of this industry are the lawyers and the health professionals. Yes.
John Trzanski has a question back here.
Yes, memory doesn't serve me that well, but I recall reading in the newspaper, the Press Enterprise, it may have been months ago, about PP&L selling to Talon Energy, and now Talon Energy say that they're going to convert that the coal power plant to a Martin gas power plant. And in that article, I believe it was mention of the Williams Company supplying that gas to them. If they do so, is that going to enhance their power for eminent domain because now they're supplying a natural gas plant here in Pennsylvania?
It depends on what pipeline they're gonna use to go there, where it's coming off
Is
of.
that the one in Shamokin?
No,
Or,
we're talking about the PPL.
Oh, Washingtonville.
Washington.
Yeah, that probably would be
Yeah,
Williams.
the eminent domain is on pipeline by pipeline. I mean, the Transco supplies gas to UGI, which supplies gas to people's homes. Doesn't mean that if they're building the Atlantic Sunrise, just because the Transco is supplying people, it automatically applies. The fact that they have stated that they plan on using Atlantic Sunrise for export does not necessarily mean you can stop it just on that. But you have to drive home the point that this gas, we have been promised since this industry came to Pennsylvania, that this was American gas for Americans. Wave the flag, it's gonna make us energy independent, we're gonna get off the oil, and there's gonna be rainbows and Skittles and unicorns dancing in everybody's backyards. This is what we've been told. This is what we've been told. This is not what's happening. This gas is headed for export. It is an export commodity. The oil that they are fracking for, if Congress gets its way, that is going to be exported. This stuff was supposed to be a bridge fuel. It's supposed to get us off of fossil fuels and get us into solar and wind and other sources of energy. They're still telling us that, despite the fact that in 2012, the American Natural Gas Association, which is a front group for the industry, and the Energy Information Agency, which is a department of the Department of Energy, federal government, came out and said natural gas is now a foundation fuel. But they're still trying to tell us it's a bridge fuel. They're still trying to tell us this is American gas for Americans, while they're building all these export facilities. Anyone? Yes?
Yeah, just to clarify on the Washingtonville plant, I believe the town is considering using natural gas through Williams, but I believe they estimated the cost to do that changeover at like $100 million. So it's very expensive and is just a possibility at this point.
Yeah, is this Talisman?
Talon.
Oh, Talon, okay. Because Talisman just got bought out by a Spanish company. And Talisman was a Canadian company drilling and fracking in northern Pennsylvania, and now they're owned by a Spanish company, Repsol. That just went through. And Repsol, by the way, has also said that they're not going to honor any of Talisman's debts. So I don't know what that means for people with gas leases with Talisman, that they haven't been paid their royalties yet. Yes?
Yeah, what you were saying is correct, per the article on the front page of Press Enterprise.
Right.
Something over 100, maybe as much as 120 million.
Correct.
Estimated cost.
Right.
But going back to this gentleman's question about getting gas there, when they built the U.S. gypsum drywall plant out adjacent to the power plant, they tapped off of the Williams pipeline up near Lairdsville and brought, I forget whether it's a 4 or 6 inch pipeline from Lairdsville to Washingtonville to have natural gas to run the ovens at the U.S. gypsum plant. So that would make me think that's the shortest route to get from the Transco pipeline, which would bring gas from wherever to get to Washingtonville.
And that establishes eminent domain because it's being used locally.
It could be, it could not. I mean, a lot of it depends on how they define it and what kind of arguments you make. I mean, eminent domain is not a done deal.
If they put the Sunrise pipeline in first, then they can just go from Buckhorn straight to Washingtonville shorter.
The gist of this is how to protect yourself, not from being taken over by eminent domain, but how to get your best deal if you want to force yourself into that position. It's to negotiate for these terms to get the best deal, the best protections that you can. You're up against a multi-million-dollar company. A lot of money. What we have here, I mean, this outturn is, it's a little disappointing.
Yeah.
Okay, for an issue like this. We need more people involved. That's how you're going to fight it. One pipeline at a time. The Atlantic Sunrise may go through, but you're going to learn from it. You're going to be better prepared with the next one, because there will be a next one, and a next one, and a next one, and a next one. And if you just roll over, they're going to come even faster. So you have to make the noise, you have to fight back. Even if there's a tiny, tiny chance of winning. I've seen people falling off of cliffs, and they're flailing around, and their arms are going, and their legs are going, trying to look for something to hang on to. And there's nothing there. But there's a chance that they may be able to grab onto something and save themselves. And that's what we're facing here. We've got to do it, because if you don't do anything, you're dead in the water. That's it. Yes.
I just want to touch on two things. The the power plant deal out there at Washingtonville, that would mean that it would end the supply of fly ash that they're actually using to make the gypsum board.
And
So there's the coal lobby and, you know, the gypsum plant are kind of interdependent out
Well,
there.
yes and no.
But, yeah,
When-
it's a
when-
consideration.
When they built that plant, they built half a plant. If you look at it, it's got a big, long, sloped roof like this, and it's a half a plant with one line in it. The drawings for it show the other half a plant with the second line in.
Yeah, they can double it.
The PPL Montour barely supplies enough gypsum for that half. Consequently, when they were building the plant, they put a rail siding in there so they can bring natural gypsum by rail from Wyoming or wherever they would choose to buy it and mine it from. They built it with the contingency not dependent on the power plant in the first place.
Well, the other consideration is the fact that, and people have asked me this several times, well, can't they just power this and power that and tap gas off? This 1,500 PSI line that Williams wants to build, it would cost millions of dollars for each installation that can actually step down the pressure and take it safely out of that line to be distributed, you know, to a much lower pressure kind of a usage. So they're only going to do it for very, very big projects like power plants and things. But, you know, people are talking about, you know, well, maybe they can power a factory with it or something. That's not going to happen. That gas is going mainly to, you know, export and big power plants down along the coast.
Yeah, but that doesn't rule out that when that big pipeline would cross this area, the old line put in, I expect probably in 1930s, that comes off of Transco up at Shipshinny, feeds Berwick, Bloomsburg, Danville, Northumberland, and ties to the line that comes down the west branch of Susquehanna. If they had a big line crossing at Catawissa, that would allow them to tap there and feed Danville, Bloomsburg off of this pipeline if they chose to do that.
That's actually something that worries me, is that they're investing all this money in this huge high pressure line when they have 3 lines buried together up there where that rupture was that need to be replaced. And those are the lines that all of us, the public, are going to be depending on for our winter heating, gas, and
The one we depend on
that sort of
the
thing.
school building is older than anyone that sits there in this building.
Yes.
The compressor station's going so close to where I live. Now, we heard within a year or two after they built this compressor station, they're gonna come back in and they're gonna frack in there again and hook into the compressor station. What people I don't think understand is that they can come back in on their property, to sign this lease already and don't know this, that they can come on their property and frack on their property and hook into that 42-inch gas line, which a lot of people don't realize. That's gonna happen eventually here. So, it's gonna snowball here pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's gonna snowball. The other thing too with the compressor stations, we'll start off with a little story. My father was chief engineer at a state institution in Massachusetts. And as chief engineer, he was in charge of the grounds and the power plant. It was a small power plant, you know, mainly for producing hot water, for heating and cooking. And he was authorized up to X amount of dollars to spend without needing, you know, his supervisor's signature on it. So, you know, if he needed something, he would fill out a purchase order, and if it was below X amount of dollars, you know, it would just go through and he'd get whatever he needed for equipment or supplies or whatever. Well, the power plant was very old, and one of the pumps, for the years that he had been working there, they had been replacing it piece by piece by piece. You know, this line breaks, it gets replaced, this little doohickey breaks, it gets replaced. Well, it got to the point where they weren't making those parts anymore for the pump. So he said, well, now is the time, we just have to order a new pump. So he put in a purchase request for the new pump, and it was over the dollar amount he was allowed to expend. And it needed his supervisor's signature. And his supervisor said, yeah, you know, go ahead, he signed it. Well, it was over that supervisor's dollar amount that he could authorize, and it had to go to somebody else, who said no. So what my dad did is he sat down with the salesman for the pump, and they got a drawing, and they got parts list for the pump, and he filled out 50 purchase orders for that pump,
One piece at a time.
for each piece of that pump. And it went through. And lo and behold, that company that sold him the pump was so happy that he bought all those parts, they even put it together for him. All right? It's called parting it out. With compressor stations, you have pollution. That's a given. There is pollution. When a company puts in for a permit for a compressor station, they have to state how much pollution that station will be putting out. There's two categories in Pennsylvania. There's what's known as a minor pollutant and a major pollutant. Now, I can't give you the exact figures on it, but each of these permits is dealt with separately, individually. So what a company will do is play the creeping compressor game. They will put in a permit for 4 compressors at a station that falls just under the maximum threshold, so it meets the requirements as a minor pollutant. A couple weeks later, they put in another permit request for another 4 compressors that's going in the same building. But because you now have 2 permits being treated separately, it doesn't matter that they're going into the same building. This permit application is a minor pollutant. This permit application is a minor pollutant. The location of them doesn't matter. They're both treated the same. So what started off as a 4 compressor station ends up as a 16 or 24 station, compressor station. And that's where